So I would like to call the regular board meeting of the St. Peter's School Board to order. It is Monday, July 20th, 2020. It is 6:34 p.m. This is the live stream because we are still doing virtual meetings because of the COVID pandemic. I apologize for my lighting. Superintendent Gronseth and I did not talk before the meeting, so I look like I'm in a Frosted Flakes commercial, but if it gets darker, maybe the light in here will actually make a difference. So we would consider a motion to adopt the agenda.
Tracy Stewie will make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Tracy.
I'll second.
John Carlson seconds. Thank you. With that, we'll do a roll call, and I'll go in the same order every time. Tracy?
Stewie, aye, right? Aye. That's what I'm saying, right? Sorry, I was talking to a kid. Yeah.
Bill?
Aye.
Dr. Soderlund said aye. John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion to adopt the agenda carries unanimously. Moving on to consider requests to speak on the agenda. If there are any requests, Sarah, do you have any requests?
I have not received any.
Okay, great. If there are any, just put them in the chat, and one of us will see that they are in the chat and try and make that possible during that agenda item. Approval of the consent agenda items. We have several items under the consent agenda. This is part of every regular board meeting as part of regular business. Those are posted on the website. We have gotten away recently from reading those each individually because they are available to anyone and everyone, and board members have definitely seen them ahead of time. So with that, we would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items. If there is an item that any board member would like pulled out, we can do so during discussion and talk more about it.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, John Carlson.
Tracy Stewie can second that.
Thank you, Tracy. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion?
Chair Leonard, I was at the district office today and went through the bills, and they are all in order.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you, Treasurer Carlson. We have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call vote as is customary during the live stream. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. I wish all board members were here and fully participating, but our roll calls will be streamlined.
I was thinking the same thing, actually. You cut at least 10 minutes off the meeting.
If Tim does join this and somebody notices that, if they could put that in the chat, that would be great. I don't want to miss him if he comes in. Action items. First action item, consider membership in the Minnesota School Boards Association, or MSBA, for the 2020-2021 school year. Superintendent Gronseth?
Yeah, this is one of those things that we do every year. We certainly have a lot of support from MSBA, and it being right here in St. Peter, we especially have great access to them. And it also provides you with leadership training opportunities as board members, and the national conference, and just kind of the ongoing support of Minnesota School Board Association. So I highly recommend approving this membership.
Excellent. Is there a motion to approve the MSBA membership?
I move to approve the MSBA membership for 2020-21.
Thank you, John
Second.
Carlson. Thank
Second.
you, Dr. Soderlund, for your second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just want to know what with the policy services, what exactly does that cover on the invoice where it's, we have the dues, the board book, but then what's the policy services? Is that just to be able to tap into their model policies, or are they doing something more for us?
No, that is just their annual updates of policies that they do.
Okay.
Yeah, to have them do a full review would be an additional fee that we could look into, but that's just the ongoing updates.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, when state law changes, that's when you get reports from them. So
Okay.
that's the board.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
those are really great to have. As we all know, lawyers are expensive, and just every policy change that happens, if we had a lawyer review it for an hour, we're gonna eclipse our MSBA membership dues for the year
Yeah.
for sure. So, and it is nice to have access to additional services like the superintendent search that we were able to access as a member district, or the policy manual help that we discussed in the policy, or that you discussed in the policy committee meeting. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a great value, and it's nice to have them in our hometown.
Awesome.
So we do have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion carries unanimously to continue our membership in MSBA for the 2020-21 school year. Next, consider membership in the Minnesota State High School League for the 2020-2021 school year.
Yes, this is another annual membership application. As you know, the Minnesota High School League oversees all of our activities, and their guidance is key in making sure that we can continue to participate, that we can compete in both local and in tournaments and state tournaments. And each year you see this application form come through that gives all the information about the district and services that they are providing.
Excellent, thank you. Initial discussion, we had to watch a video before we are able to vote on this. So has everyone watched the video? And by saying no, we would be unable to vote on this, is my understanding.
Of course we watched it. It was 6 minutes and 41 seconds or something like that. I was glad to see it was kind of updated, because that Eric Martins, he only has been the executive director for like a little while. So it's obviously a current video. So I appreciated that. So there, I proved that I watched.
Excellent. Thank you.
I did not watch that.
All right. Well, since you haven't watched it, Superintendent Gronseth, can we legally vote on this, or do we need to table for next meeting?
Well, I think that you can vote on it, and we can help Dr. Soderlund to view it. The video that we're referring to is called Why We Play, and it's really about that athletics are more than competition. It's really about a balanced approach to our athletics, and that they're students first, and talk about all of the the great things that kids experience by being part of the Minnesota High School League activities. So I think that you could vote and have Dr. Soderlin watch the video.
Excellent. That sounds like a good idea. Sarah, could you send out that that YouTube link again, either during or right after the meeting tonight?
Will do.
Thank you very much.
I do have a question about the State High School League, because I know one of the things that I was appointed to, it says I was the Minnesota State High School League School District Advisor. What does that mean, and what do I do?
Ben,
it just-
I can answer that.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, John.
I was that for a bunch of years, and there's an advisory committee that the athletic director or activities director puts together and calls occasional meetings that you get together with a separate group and discuss issues related to co-curriculars and fine arts. You'll also be a voting member for AAA and XL awards.
Oh, okay.
Your interaction with the State High School League is virtually nil. If you want,
Perfect.
I think Jordan can forward you or give you the magazine that he gets a monthly magazine from the State High School League, and he could give it to you. I used to request it, but then it was interesting reading, but it didn't really affect any decisions I was making. So,
Okay. Well, they'll be a rather popular entity here in a couple weeks, so I was just curious.
Yes, they will.
I was on mute. Excellent. Thank you. Superintendent Gronseth, do we have a motion in a second?
I don't know.
I don't believe you do.
I don't believe we do. We would entertain a motion.
Tracy Stewie will make a motion to adopt the resolution. I think that's what I'm making a motion for.
John Carlson will second.
Excellent. And this is just to clarify that motion. This is, I mean, we're doing all of our votes via roll call, so it's like a resolution, but this does not require board resolution to pass, just a simple vote, I think.
Oh, okay.
Really? I thought it was the opposite, but
It says resolution for membership on it, so that's why I thought it was.
That's why I thought it was. Who cares? We do a roll call every time.
Who cares?
It'll be important next year, hopefully.
Exactly.
So.
Well, we will cover our bases and do a roll call.
It is a resolution.
It is a resolution. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy.
Hey, I'm looking alive tonight.
So this is a resolution. So if we could just clarify that in the minutes. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. The resolution to continue our membership in the Minnesota State High School League for the 2020-21 school year passes unanimously.
Woo-hoo.
So moving on to action item number 3, consider approval of another resolution for the superintendent to be identified with, help me, Superintendent Gronseth, read this item, but for you to be identified officially with official authority for MDE access, is that?
Yes, it's referred to as the Iowa Identified Officials with Authority for Access. So each change of leadership, you need to re-identify who the district Iowa is. Sarah has also had that honor of being able to authorize for MDE. And so the two of us will continue as the district's Iowa. It allows us to be able to go on to the state website and give authorization for forms and make changes for the district.
Excellent. Any initial discussion? Anyone want to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Tracy. Oh, yep.
So we have John Carlson with a motion to approve the resolution and Dr. Soderlund with a second. Any further discussion? All right, we will do a resolution roll call vote. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, A.
Excellent. Ben Leonard? Also aye. Resolution carries unanimously. All right, action item number 4. This was discussed about an hour ago in the finance meeting, which included John Carlson, Dr. Soderlund, and myself. Consider approval of the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance revenue plan. So Superintendent Gronseth, do you want to explain this a little bit?
Sure. Again, I think this month we have quite a few yearly things that we take care of, this being one of them. Each year we update our 10-year plan for the long-term facilities maintenance for the state. And each year it gets updated. And the closer the year is to us, the more specific it is and the more solid it is. And the farther it gets out, the more it's an estimated plan for going forward. What it really does is help us to look 10 years into the future and to consider what work is going to come up in all of our buildings across the district, to be able to keep them up to speed, up to maintenance over time. And so in the finance committee, we went over that 10-year plan and really laid out some of the larger pieces, knowing that that may change as we go along. And really, the program is designed to do just that, to be flexible, to allow us to take care of things along the way. And I'm not sure if Mr. Regner or Mr. Bachman have anything to add to that, but that is what this plan covers.
That's pretty much in a nutshell there. We get about 900,000 in revenue a year, and we spend the various amounts that's on there. We talk about length at the finance committee meeting. We are in the negative, or we spent the head, I guess, to do some of the roofs, and we're trying to catch back up with that. And it's about half levy and half aid, so it really helps us out that we get a bunch of aid from the taxpayers, and we only have to from the state, and we only have to levy our taxpayers about half of it. So it's a nice program. Started about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's just for deferred maintenance, and it's worked well.
And I'll just add that if you're looking at it closely, you'll see some of our numbers change this year compared to the last couple of years. And that's because we're looking at 20 years down the road and some big expenses that future boards and leadership will have. So we're trying to stretch that out and rearrange it a little bit to flatten it out a little bit so we don't have a big spike in the late 2030s.
Thank you very much. And, for members of the public, like myself, that weren't in town in 1997, a lot of the reason that these big projects come up at the same time is because some weather took care of most of the district's roofs in 1997 with that tornado. And so they were all done then, and then, they're all coming due again. And I really appreciate the plan to try and maintain how we can and push some off and to spread those expenses out and big projects. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you. All right. Any more initial discussion before a motion to approve the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance revenue plan?
Ben, I believe this one needs to be a resolution also.
Excellent.
You need to send that fourth page into the state as part of the requirements.
Excellent. So in the motion that gets made, just make reference that it is a resolution.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Is that okay?
That's perfect, Tracy. Thank you.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Soderlund, with the second of the motion to approve the resolution. We will now do a roll call vote. Tracy?
Stewie? Aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Resolution carries unanimously. All right, we're on to action item number 5. Consider approval of authorizing superintendent as a signer on District 508 accounts. Is this also a resolution?
I think this is more just in working with the local banks. There's some things that the superintendent needs to sign on, so it doesn't really need to be a resolution. It just needs to be in our minutes, and then they'll probably have some paperwork to switch, the accounts over that the superintendent's on to Mr. Gronseth. Some of the banks, they've got a lot of paperwork on checking accounts and stuff that we're on. So I don't believe it needs to be a resolution, just in the minutes.
Perfect, thank you. And this isn't authorizing anything that we haven't authorized the superintendent to do. It's more just recognition that we transferred superintendents, and Bill Gronseth needs to have access to those accounts. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
Or I will second it. Let Dr. Soderlund move it.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. We'll do a roll call vote again. Tracy?
Stewie? Aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, yep.
Ben Leonard? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We are down to our last action item. Consider the second and final reading of Chapter 004, Business Management, and 005.21, Recruitment, and 005.22, Evaluation of the School Board Policy Book. Or recruitment is... Yeah, I think I messed that up, but...
So the 005.22 is just evaluation, and they're both of the school board policy book. It's not evaluation of the policy book.
Excellent, thank you. So 5.21 and 5.22.
Correct. And these are policies that you've been working on. There was a first reading last month. With a meeting of the policy committee, no one had received any further input or additions, edits, and so they came forward to you for a second reading. After a second reading, they become enacted and will be posted in our policy book and on the website under school board and policies.
Great, thank you. Any initial discussion before a motion to approve? John, you are muted, but I can sense your enthusiasm for making a motion.
Actually, I have a couple of things. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
On page 61, did it used to cost money to pay over Infinite Campus? If you look at or Roman numeral 3B, it says families can pay for meals online via Infinite Campus at no charge. Why don't we just take out at no charge?
Oh, yeah, because there used to be a charge and now there isn't. So that's, yeah, I can see what you're saying.
So I think that some weird things that are just discussion. So as far as reimbursement rates for meals, we're just going to turn this over to the superintendent to establish that. Is that correct? The committee? Because it appears we're taking out any dollar figures that we have there. So.
I'm trying to remember because obviously we talked about that. But I don't know why we took it out. Sorry. I'm going to blame it on Dr. Olson. No, I don't know. Is it not required for us to have it in there? So did we think, well, why have it in there? It's just one more thing to update. I don't know.
Superintendent Gronseth?
Generally, with policies, we try not to include things like dollar amounts that change over time so that the policy can stand on its own and then have it be an administrative function or a process or a procedure for admin to do to set those. And there is a state guideline. It's called the GSA, and they set amounts for the state, each region across the country. And we would use a tool like that to be able to set that so that as there are changes to those, kind of like we do with the mileage amount, that we could just enact those changes and bring those changes to you as informational rather than have it take 2 readings of policy to change the numbers.
Say, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Superintendent Gronseth is refreshing my memory. We authorized the superintendent to set that price. Is that what you recall?
That's where
Yep.
Yes.
That's why we did that.
That makes excellent sense to me.
That makes sense to me. That's fine. Then on number 4, underneath that on page 55, it says there is no provision for reimbursement of alcoholic beverages or for tips and gratuities in excess of 15%. First of all, those seem like completely different issues. And number 2, 15% is pretty low these days. I would say that number could be up to 20%, honestly. If anybody knows any servers, they know that 15% is pretty low right now.
I think actually when servers, and my son works as a server, so I just helped him do his taxes. And the assumption by the government for servers is that they're receiving at least 20% in tips.
Well, then we for sure want to have it be 20%.
And is there a chance we could separate those two, make the reimbursement for alcoholic beverages be number 4, and tips and gratuities shall not exceed 20%, not in excess of 20%?
Makes sense to me.
The only reason I think that makes great sense to me too, Treasurer Carlson, the only reason I think that potentially those were linked is the issue of, what's the total bill and what's the tip on? To just be extra clear that the school district doesn't pay for alcohol.
Right.
And doesn't, I'm assuming, doesn't pay for a tip based on the purchase of alcohol either.
Right. That's a good point, I guess. I think
I would think people would, staff and certainly the school board understands that. So I don't know that it's an issue that needs a rule or a solution in policy that way, but
Yeah, that's a good point. I still think it can be number 5 because no one's gonna use school funds to just tip. You know what I mean?
We could, on number 5, put 20% of
allowable expenses, or
yeah, something like that. We could figure out that verbiage.
Here, Leonard, I just want to, after going through bills today, this has been like my 5th year being treasurer. I will say that I have never seen alcoholic expenses on a receipt that has been turned in. And so I think that, I think that that's just a separate thing and people won't. The only way I could see it kind of colluding each other or involving each other is if they didn't turn in, maybe they had one glass of wine and they turn in the receipt with the glass of wine on there. It seems like whenever anybody does that, it's on a separate bill.
yeah, I think you raise a good point, and I think that in excess of, if it's changed to 20%, it's inferred in that policy that it's 20% of allowed expenses. So it's fine, I think. But I do appreciate your request to separate those two. I think that makes sense.
All right. And then I just have 2 more. The airline travel credit, if you go to the next one, it says employees utilizing school district funds to pay for airline travel are required to ensure that any credits or other benefits issued by an airline, that the district accrues that benefit rather than the employee. I actually called Terry Morrow about this because it seems like if Ben, if you go to the National School Boards Association convention and you get and it's in Chicago and you get 500 frequent flyer miles, that should not go to the school district. And it's too much of a thing. Terry Morrow says if the only reason that we don't need to change this, but the reason it's okay to keep frequent flyer miles, hotel benefits, or rental car credit stuff is because it is not a cost to the school district. So I said, so can the wording stay the same? And he kind of said, yeah. Because I just called him on it, and he called 2 actuary guys to ask them what they thought and said the wording's fine, but just so employees know that if they do rent a car and it's from a company they have an awards program with, they don't have to turn that back into the school district because it's not an additional cost. Or catching a flight, sitting out, they're overbooked and you sit out and you get a voucher for something, you don't have to turn that into the school district. The accounting on that would be a nightmare, I think.
I do think that that's what this policy says.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we would have to change it then, wouldn't we?
The first part of it threw me off a little bit. That's the only thing.
If I could, I have a question on this. This is an area I haven't delved into enough to know the answer to, but when staff are traveling by air, does the district buy that ticket or does the individual buy the ticket and get reimbursed? Because I believe if the district is buying the ticket, the points stay with the district because we've actually purchased it with a district account. And if a person is doing it, then it would go with them. But I'm not sure what the procedures are on travel.
Annette, do you want to weigh in on?
Yeah, I was just gonna weigh in on that one. It kind of depends. I think if it's one of us, like who might have a school credit card, it goes on the school card. But sometimes if it's a staff member who needs to make a reservation, they would put it on their own. So it kind of depends on who it is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and that
yeah.
it's kind of happened both ways. We've been reimbursed for airfare or put it on a credit card. It's happened both ways.
That might be an area that we want to visit and put some standard practice and standard protocol in, because sometimes I think there's probably some cost savings for the district if the district is able to make those arrangements, and if the district is able to benefit from those points by receiving cheaper travel for others. That's something that would be down the line that we're not prepared to do at this moment in time, but we could revisit it if you accepted the policy as it were. That could be an area that we came back to.
Yeah, from my perspective, I feel like that this could be spelled out in procedure, and we can come back later and clean this up a little bit to be more explicit, but it can be read either way. That if we're utilizing school district funds to directly pay for airline travel, it's going to be through a credit card. Those benefits are going to reside with the district. If it's a reimbursement, that is a little bit different than I think letter A is describing, and could be the other way. So.
Okay, so I just want to understand, Len, what our policy. So if I'm reading it correctly, then let's not pick Annette because she has a credit card. So we're going to say Bill Stewie's going to go down to the Bahamas for a FIAG convention, and he buys his ticket. This is very real. He buys his ticket. So, and he's getting all these frequent flyer miles. So then he's supposed to turn in it says they will not, something from the airline that says they're unable to transfer those miles to the district. I mean, that's kind of how I'm reading it. And that seems like unnecessary because who's actually going to go through the work of that? Like, our airline's just going to be like, are you kidding me?
Could we actually, well, we could do whatever we want. We're the school board.
Yeah.
I would, I would request that we think about not accepting this policy tonight and taking another stab at it, because as I look at letter B, it does talk about reimbursement.
I know.
So it's a little hazy to me, and whatever the intent of the district is, and I will say my employer also has a rule that says that we can't collect frequent flyer miles and things like that. So I do think that is something that other employers do, whether or not we have a legal obligation to do that. It sounds like from Treasurer Carlson's research with MSBA that we do not have a legal obligation to do that. It would have to be a decision of whether we wanted to do that as a district or didn't want to do that, which is going to eclipse tonight's board meeting. So.
Yeah, I think it's an unnecessary thing. And like, if you took a later flight and got like a $100 voucher that you can use on a later flight, well, the inconvenience is to you, not to the school district. That was the point. The people that Terry Morrow talked to today, it's no inconvenience to the school district. And when he says really mileage points, I mean, you get 500 miles towards getting 20,000 miles towards a free flight somewhere. It's nominal. And so if we can reword that a little bit, I think that'll be good. So. And lastly, I sorry to take more time, but the very last thing on page 73, it talks about the evaluation process for professional development and professional development expectations for paraprofessional and non-licensed personnel. Is this something that was negotiated? Is this, where did this all come from? Because it seems
that came from me. That came from me, John. What's your question about it specifically?
It just seems like a lot of work for, I mean, we try to do our best with the, for the principals to evaluate our teachers. I think this gets pretty specific, establishing committees, and it seems like this is pretty in depth. I'm all for professional development of our groups, but I think we cover that in contract language, and to have it put in policy is redundant, first of all, because we are under contract in a contract that says we have to do that, and it is very extensive. The point where
okay. Well, I believe this was a proposal done by Dr. Olson after our discussion on this policy.
Okay.
I'm not following why you feel reticent about taking this as is. I mean, specifically, what is the issue?
It's just, it spells it out very specifically. So, meaning it gives us little wiggle room. So if we don't follow one of these things, which is a lot of things, if you look at it, A through D, we're not following board policy. And I think we are.
So, I mean, pick out one and be specific so I can follow what you're saying.
Here we go. So superintendent of schools will establish an advisory professional development committee for each of the non-licensed personnel groups of employees in the school district. Each committee must be facilitated by district principal or site/program administrator. Committee shall consist of members from each employee group representing each site in the district. The committee will develop a staff development plan, which will be reviewed by the school board on an annual basis.
So what is the issue with that?
Are we not doing that right now?
No.
Something similar?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, I don't know if we are or we aren't.
Say for example, with the paraprofessionals, I believe that what we want to see is that each building has specific training and group meetings so that they can improve what they're doing and learn specific to that building. Okay, right now, what we're having for training, what has been going on, is a lot of redundancy. So if you've been a paraprofessional for 3 years, you've heard the same in-service several times, and it doesn't apply to what you're doing. And this is really a problem. So I think what we're, if you take the attitude or the approach that this is too much and it spells it out, I think it needs to spell it out. It isn't, it's still giving wiggle room in here, but it's saying we need to address professional development specifically with the paraprofessionals so that they're being trained that's appropriate to what they're doing.
Right. Dr. Soderlund, I respectfully disagree with you in that when we were going through negotiations with the paraprofessionals, we'll use your group as an example, even though it happened with all the groups in their specific area, custodian, spoiler license type of things. We specifically talked about how we would handle this with macro credentials and things that are relevant to helping them become better paraprofessionals. It's all laid out there. Everything you've just brought up is laid out in the contract with the paraprofessionals. I don't believe they are getting the same thing regurgitated every year. If they are, it's not going to happen this next time around because of the credential program that we have set up with them through our employment contract.
Well, that's wonderful, but it wasn't going on. This particular policy, the best I can find is it may have been updated in 1999. So it's 21 years old at least, and it has not been going on. So it's comforting to know that it's going to go on, but I'd like it spelled out in a policy that we're going to move forward, and this is what we're aiming for. And I think it gives you plenty of wiggle room. But I think it makes it clear this is a priority, and it has not been a priority that I can find. And I think we need to spell it out. So my stance is I'm going to hold firm. I think this gives us plenty of wiggle room, and I think it's very important that this gets addressed. Regardless of the contract, I think as a school district, we owe it to the children that the paraprofessionals are being trained and are having the resources that they need to do a wonderful job for the children. It has not been spelled out. Now we're spelling it out. Wiggle room's in there.
I think
this has to happen.
Thank you, Dr. Soderlund. Thank you, Treasurer Carlson. As I read it, Policy 5.2 was reviewed in December of 1999, June of 2004, November of 2012, August of 2016, and now July of 2020. And starting in 2012, that's when we really we cauterized our 4-year review process. So I think going forward, each policy is reviewed every 4 years going forward from 2012. This was an existing policy, and if we look at the highlights, I believe that it said 5.2 non-instructional personnel recruitment, and we are proposing adding paraprofessionals specifically and getting rid of instructional for licensed and including orientation to recruitment. So it is an existing policy that applied to non-licensed staff, which I still believe includes paraprofessionals. So this is a policy that applied to paraprofessionals in the past, but it's just more spelled out now. Principals, is that fair to say?
Who are you
Yeah.
at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
royal we.
No, I think
I
if
shall
I can,
speak for all.
yeah, if I can talk for just a second as the for staff development. One of the things that we really try to do with our staff development is we work through those systems groups that we have. So just as an awareness, so each system group we do meet with a couple of times a year. And one of the things that we do is we establish what their goals are for that year and what the areas of focus are. And we really do take those plans right from what the school board goals are. So the goals of the school board shift down to the school building level, and then we work with our building leadership team. And then from there, we work with each of the systems. So the principal leads each take one of those systems groups. And unfortunately, Mr. Graff isn't here tonight, but he is the one that has taken the paraprofessionals group. So I know one of the first early releases of the year, he meets with that team. They talk about what are some opportunities for training that they feel like they need. We were using the early release time to help provide areas that they identified that they needed support in. And we also then do that same thing with the other groups based on what their needs are. So if that just gives you a little insight into how we really determine what trainings we put in place and what things that they need. Along with, there's always specific training if a para is working with a student. I mean, I can think of a few students who had some very specific needs. That training is above and beyond. That isn't something that we would do for the whole group. Just wanted to offer that.
And Dr. Soderlund, respectfully, I would rather go off of, because you're saying something isn't happening, and that seems to be pretty anecdotal when we're actually visiting with the representatives of that employee group, the paraprofessionals, and we are not getting the same signal. In fact, we enhanced beyond the credentials. They also were trying on a pilot for these next 2 years for them to meet with their respective teachers. Do you remember if that's once a week or once every 2 weeks? How do we set that up? You remember that from the contract?
I believe isn't it 15 minutes every week? So an
Yeah,
hour a month?
Yep, 15 minutes a week or an hour a month. So again, I think that what we have here isn't necessarily in line with what we did in the contract, but what we did in the contract is what was agreed on by the leaders of the paraprofessionals, not just anecdotally hearing from a paraprofessional or two that this is a concern.
So if I might, I have sat in on 2 of the training sessions for the early release, and I don't know what you're referring to as anecdotal, but I just have to say that it's time that we address this, and I appreciate the contract, but I think as a school board, we need to be aware that this is an important role and that we need to do a better job on it. With respect to Chairman Leonard, I didn't want to imply that we weren't reading this every 4 years. What I'm saying is, according to the data on that, there has been no revision on it for 21 years. This policy has not been revised for 21 years. And things have changed since then. So I don't understand what the conflict is between making this policy as a school board saying, this is what our goals are, this is what we want to see, and we give wiggle room, but this is important. It's been 21 years since we revised this at least. Let's move forward with this, regardless of what the contract says. I don't see that they're mutually exclusive or they're tied together. They're mutually inclusive. That one can't say one thing, and this is the school board. This is our hope that paraprofessionals are trained and they have time to meet, and that it isn't one person overseeing all their training that isn't affiliated with the individual buildings. I think that's an issue. So anyway, that's my feeling on this.
And why is paraprofessionals separated from all other non-instructional licensed personnel? I'm not understanding that. We have paraprofessionals.
Well, at one point for the last 21 years, paraprofessionals were listed as non-instructional personnel. Well, that's not even right.
Right. No, I agree.
And so that was crazy. That's been reviewed, like Chairman Leonard said, starting in 2012 every 4 years. But they do instruct. They may not be licensed. Some of them actually have a teaching license, but they were called non-instructional. Well, that's not right. They're paraprofessionals. I mean, we could make a policy for each category of employee, but when we talked about it, this is paraprofessional and non-licensed personnel. Some paraprofessionals do have a license, by the way.
Yep, you sold me on that one, Dr. Soderlund. I believe you.
Okay.
I agree with you on that. But
thank you both for this conversation. I think there's a few things that are clear to me. I do believe, just as an aside, I do believe when we review policy, we don't make a distinction of whether we just reviewed it and kept it as is, or revised it a little, or revised a lot. It's just simply noted as reviewed. So I'm not seeing anything that says that we haven't changed the language in this policy for 21 years. It's my assumption and understanding that it was last reviewed in 2016. I
So
think
Chairman Leonard.
Yep.
Yeah, if you just go back to say page 67, where it says adopted on that June 2010, and at the bottom it says revised. So typically on a policy, it'll put when they were reviewed and then when they were revised.
Okay.
So that is listed on our policies. That is standard within our school policies.
I will say that a lot of times where it says revised, it is reflecting a change in state statute rather than not being reviewed or changed in the previous 21 years.
I think it would be a good idea when I've read through the policy manual, it appeared that it did say revised, such as I just pointed out. And I think that's a good policy to have for a policy, that if you're making a revision, that it's so noted. So you have a sequence of events, you have a path that leads back to the original policy.
Agreed.
But,
yeah, and I know that Superintendent Gronseth has some thoughts on this. I believe that the way I read this was an existing policy that did include paraprofessionals. We are updating the language on how we refer to them, but that they were inclusive of this policy in the past. It also feels like, as a school board, each of us wants to understand how these changes that are being proposed change what we do, and how these changes interact with the contract and perhaps other personnel policies. So it would probably be wise for us to take a moment to look at this policy through the personnel committee, perhaps the negotiations committee, and just clarify that for all members. And we do have a quorum tonight, but there are 3 school board members who aren't here as well. So Superintendent Gronseth.
Thank you, Chair Leonard. You know, I don't know how long I can play this new guy card, but I am going to say that you know, I'm 2.5 weeks in and trying to wrap my hands around some conversations that have been, you know, in play for a couple of months here. And this is one of those areas where I was with the policy committee, and we didn't spend a lot of time on this because it was a second reading, and it had been to the board once before this for a first reading. And whenever I'm thinking about policy, I think about outcomes. So I think about, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What do we want to make sure happens because of this policy in place, and not so much about how we get that outcome. And when I consider this language, I can see that what we want to have is, we want rigorous staff development for our paraprofessionals and non-licensed staff. And knowing that we have many required trainings that have to happen each and every year, and some that have to happen every other year because of state requirements and statutes that we have to have those pieces in place, and knowing that contract language does play a part in how much professional development we are able to provide, as well as the budget, unfortunately, comes into play when we're talking about staff development too, because we do want to honor people's time by paying them for their staff development pieces. But I'm also wondering if there aren't some redundancies that we're creating with this. Listening to Principal Olkey talk about how we do have times that we're talking with a group of people, a non-licensed group. I'm not sure how that group interacts with the group that's being created by this policy, and how both of those interact with each unit's leadership team. So I just want to be careful that we're not creating structures that already exist in another place. Now, I'm not claiming to have enough information to tell you how those groups were formed or how they function. I'm just trying to share how I see it as somebody coming in and looking at this, keeping in mind that we want these to be about outcomes. So that's my piece on these. I don't have the perfect answer for you, but those are my thoughts.
I make a motion that we table this item and have a chance to review it in various committees, personnel, negotiations, and policy review as well. And maybe others, I don't know. Those are the only two that come to my head. But I move that we table this item.
Is there a second?
Oh, sorry. If you need a second, I'll second it. I didn't know how. This is my first time we're tabling an item, so it's all new for me here. But I'll second it because I think it needs to obviously have more discussion.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion right now? All right, hearing none. Go ahead, Dr.
I would like to just say the outcome is that I would like to see personally is that we focus on this and make some improvement in. And I think everybody can agree we can always improve. I think we really need to improve here. How we get from point A to point B, the outcome is let's improve. I'd like to bring some focus on this. I'd like to have this discussion. I think one of the dilemmas that I see is I'm not able as a board member to get a report on what's going on with the paraprofessionals, and we've got a number of them working for the school district. I don't know what's happening with them. I'd like to know. I would like to know what we're doing as a school to get an outcome. What kind of steps are we taking for staff development? Is there any need for improvement? Are we doing this the wrong way? Do we need to reevaluate it? And I'd like to know what's going on. I think the way the policy was written, and I didn't think, when I reviewed it, I didn't think it was being followed very well. So this was a proposal, I believe, by Dr. Olson that we do this. I'm open to discussing it or sending it back to committee, but what I don't want to see is that we take attention off of this issue and just table the whole thing. So I'd like to keep some attention on this.
Yeah, so Dr. Soderlund, I think I'm in agreement with you. The couple of things is I think Superintendent Gronseth made a great point that maybe some of the things that you heard were some of the things that are required from state statute. And if I've been a paraprofessional for 14 years, that may not be professional development, but it's required by state statute that it's covered with the paraprofessionals. Number two is that while we are board members, we are not schooled in education. That's not our specialty. And I just am always a little nervous when we start traveling down the road of kind of dictating how the people that we ask our superintendent to hire to be our leaders, to be the head of instruction and professional development, how they do their jobs. And that's where I think it rubs me a little bit the wrong way. I don't claim to be an expert on professional development for paraprofessionals. A part of that has to come from the paraprofessionals, which I've gotten, fortunately, being on the negotiations committee, but also it comes from the principals and administrators that we hire to make sure that professional development is happening and to the benefit of our students.
Absolutely. Thank you both. And I would add that we obviously have passion for paraprofessionals and want to make sure they're supported. We have equal passion for teachers and custodians and office support and all of our employee groups and each and every staff person at St. Peter's schools. And so I think our approach in how we work as board members, our approach in how we fund the efforts of the school district and how we support training and teaching and all the activities that happen throughout a school day with students and staff members are important, and we want to make sure that those are represented in procedures and that those are supported through budget. I think we just want to make sure that we're doing that the right way, and that doesn't mean that we're discounting paraprofessionals or teachers or any employee group, but we just want to make sure that we don't have contradictory parts, that we're all working together in the same way. I think that this sounds more like a discussion for the personnel committee, just because we're really talking about training and recruitment and professional development of staff, and that work, I think, is more in the personnel committee, more in the negotiations committee based on what's on contract, and then it's the job of the policy to reflect those things, in my mind.
Chairman Leonard, I appreciate that. I apologize, John. I didn't mean to rub you the wrong way. I don't claim to be an educator, but I'm on the policy committee, and now I'm hearing the discussion. Chairman Leonard, you're saying, well, this is actually a personnel, maybe not necessarily a policy, and the policy needs to get in lockstep with the personnel committee. I would just like to have a discussion on what we're doing here moving forward. And granted, there's all kinds of other things going on, but I would like to be included and be able to have an open discussion about how we're moving forward with this. And I am not trying to step on anybody's toes or point the finger at anybody, but I think this needs to be addressed. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, and just one final thing, Dr. Soderland, I thought this was a great discussion. I didn't feel any emotion. I just thought it needed to be talked out, and I think we've started that, and I think it'll continue. And hopefully, this section of the whole policy will come back the next meeting. So yeah, please don't think that I was offended by anything that was said back and forth. I thought it was good information back and forth. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. There's no reason that the entire board can't have a conversation about this. We can look at it as part of a upcoming study session. Realistically, we probably do need to get through what the 2020, 2021 school year is going to look like. And we're going to have to make those decisions in the next month or so, and then prepare for the school year. But I think it's a great topic for an upcoming study session. I think in the short term, it is something that the personnel committee could look at, just to make sure that we're not conflicting a policy and a contract, that those things are working together, and that we have a policy that lets us support our staff members. And Superintendent Gronseth, you made a statement about the earlier policy. Look, we don't want to have dollar amounts in here, because dollar amounts can change. I don't want to have dollar amounts in this policy either, because if we're too prescriptive, we might list something that doesn't include state law, or state law changes, or we find a much better way to do it, but we're bound by then having to change a policy. The policy should not be an exact specific roadmap of how we train and support staff. It should allow those things to be built underneath it. So I think we can do both. We can move ahead with a policy and bring it forth at a later meeting after we take a little bit more time with it. And then we can also agree that we should discuss these kinds of things in future study sessions. I would say that not just the paraprofessionals, but other employee groups as well. So. We do have a motion and a second to table this, but not to set it aside, but just to allow for more time. We will do a roll call vote. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion carries. That is the end of our action items. We'll move on to reports, and number one is principals.
All right. Well, Doreen and Darren and I visited today, and we decided that our report would be about our starting of STARS Academy and extended school year. So today was the first day of our 4-week program. So we're running our program today through August 13th, 4 mornings a week, 4 days a week. With our hybrid plan, students attend either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday on site. On the 2 days that they're not on site, they're doing distance learning at home. And so we've been working to get iPads out to students and hotspots. So we really thank our technology department for being on the ball, getting that done. They've been working very diligently, as have our teachers who've been working in the program as well. Doreen, you can, and Darren, please chime in, but we did have a training last week for the folks who were attending or who were going to be teaching in the program. And so they all were together for about 12 to 16 hours last week, planning and preparing for the program, getting their rosters made, and things like that. Darren and Doreen, anything to add to that piece of it?
Yeah,
kudos to the teachers and the paraprofessionals that are working in the program. The attitudes and the willingness to do what we need, even though it's doing things very differently, their willingness to do things the right way and safe way for the students. Just really put in a lot of time, and it showed today. And the kids were so excited to see them. That was not hugging them. That was honestly the hardest part of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo that same thing. First and foremost, it's so great to see, kids back in the building, and a school building doesn't have a purpose without students and teachers and support staff in there. So that's what makes it a community. Lots of smiles. The can-do attitude of our teachers and paraprofessionals last week was phenomenal, as we're heading into these very undone ever type of situations. And it's just like, well, we'll figure it out. So they put it together. It came together really nicely. And it wasn't, I mean, we did spend a lot of time on logistics because health and safety of our students and staff is number one. But last week, we also did get into some professional development pieces. What does a more impactful kind of blended hybrid learning look like? What are some of those focus areas? Like, how do we focus our instruction even better when we're talking about reading and math instruction, social emotional learning? So we didn't just talk about protocol of COVID and how to respond to that, but actually how can we make our instruction even more impactful? So it was a great first day.
Yeah, well, Stars Academy and Extended School Year, those are by invitation. And so we provided invitations for Stars Academy to about 30 students at each level, K through 6th grade. And so we actually have about 110 kids participating in the program. Some feedback we received from our families is that without transportation, that was certainly a barrier, as we predicted it would be. And the other piece is that there were families who just were not comfortable with coming on site and would have preferred a distance learning only model. So that's some really good feedback as we move into plans for the fall that we can take with us. I think we agreed today that day one for K6 was certainly a success. Kids were happy to be there. Parents followed protocols. Kids were wearing masks. Teachers and staff were just right there. And again, our student support liaisons, Afi and Maripsa, were very essential in getting the communication out to families and helping problem solve. So again, about 110 today, 110 registered. So about half of that today and tomorrow, and then the second half Wednesday, Thursday. Our early childhood ESY is taking on a little bit different flavor, and that also officially begins this week. And because of the inability to social distance with our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, that the decision was made that program-wide that would be distance learning. So unfortunately, we have only about 14 of our students participating in that program, but we're getting those iPads and hotspots out to those students as well. So overall, a good day. It really provides hope for us and smiles to see those kids at school. We're happy that they're there. They're happy that they're there. And parents were happy that they were there as well. One of the teachers said, "Are you kidding? They're happy. Their kids have been home since March." So they were certainly, we appreciate that they're putting their trust in us to keep their kids as safe as they can be at school. And then at the high school level, Annette and Jana, if you would want to update.
Yeah, we'd love to. We started our summer school credit recovery programs today, and I would echo all of the mentions that the other principals gave to the training that teachers went through last week, the planning and preparation that our instructional trainers went through to get them ready, and all of the people who talked through the logistics of starting a hybrid model of summer school cooking during a pandemic, including Mr. Bachman. Thank you to you and Barb Regner on all of that. And since Jana has joined our meeting tonight, I'm going to let her talk about some of our numbers and how the summer program has changed for credit recovery, because she's done just a ton of work on that over the last months, and in her role as a assistant principal for the ALC. I'll let her fill you in on some of that. So Jana, welcome to the board meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So one thing that was positive with the pandemic is that starting summer school at the end of July, like we did, we had quite a bit more time to organize and invite families and communicate about summer school. In past years, we have simply sent a letter saying, this is your summer school assignment. And then we cross our fingers that kids show up. And our rate of showing up was probably about 60% in past years. And so this year I sent letters and invitations to 156 students that needed a half a credit or more of credit recovery. And we had 90 students sign up for credit recovery based on that 156 invitations. We have 160 enrollments, meaning that of those 90 students, several of them are enrolled in more than one class. So that's also really positive. And our show up rate today, our rate of attendance was much higher than 60%. We only had a handful of students that were absent today. So that was really great.
Did I freeze up or did Sakura?
I think Jana froze up.
Okay.
And maybe Annette? Annette,
I
are you?
know. I'm like, Ben, maybe? I don't know.
Who's not moving?
I know. That's why I was like, I think I'm still on.
And
It's like
Ben,
some weird movie.
it is.
Strange that 3 of them locked up at the same time.
Yeah, we lost our pilot.
They all have their same internet service provider.
I know my internet went out before.
You know what? But all of a sudden, I'm getting the whoever is talking. The picture goes big. Boy, that gets to be a lot with the group too.
Oh, let's see.
So, a flash.
Oh my.
Okay.
Oh,
I think they're going out and coming back again, I
This
think.
is weird.
Yeah.
There she is.
You're muted, Annette.
Did we lose the rest of the board?
Oh. Tracy, now you're on twice, so you might get some feedback.
Okay, I'm gonna take this one off there.
Yeah, I was frozen too. Something happened to the internet, but what I heard from Jana was excellent.
Could you hear me?
So
I heard most of it until everything froze. And now
Bill Soderlund, are you there?
Sorry.
Bill Soderlund, are
I'm
you
here.
there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Chair Leonard is not back yet, and Member Carlson.
So I'm not the only one that got kicked out.
No, it was weird.
No.
So right now you don't have a quorum in here until they can come back in.
I'm going to see if I can get in again on the computer so I'm not sitting here on my phone.
This is Ben Leonard. I'm joining by phone now because my internet decided to die.
Oh, no.
Well, it seems that quite a few people were locked in. And so we're still waiting on Member Carlson so that you'll have quorum back.
Awesome. That sounds good. I will continue to try and join on online as well.
I can text John and suggest he call in if we'd like a forum if his internet is out. Would that be helpful?
I already did.
Oh, well, there you go.
This is just a test to see how you'll handle if the whole meeting just tanks out and you're doing great. I thought we were doing so good with our time.
Yeah.
So can I ask the principals a question, or can I suppose I shouldn't do that until we get him back on.
Hey, I'm in, by the way.
Oh,
there he is. He just, all right, good.
So we do have a quorum, correct?
I believe you have your forum back. Yes. Okay.
All right.
You're good to go.
Did you want me? I
Yes,
don't know where
Tracy,
I
please
left
ask your
off.
question.
well, I guess it's kind of a little bit of the curiosity piece with the two different programs going on. And like, are the students wearing masks during this time? Are pairs wearing masks? Have you found more of the ESY people declining? I mean, is there like a bigger percentage there in terms of people that might need like close pair support and are unable to get it? And then I'm really full of questions because we're not providing transportation. Is that just how it is right now? That was a lot of questions, but I'm very curious.
So we did decide as an administrative team with the consultation of information from MDH, MDE, and our school nurse that we would ask staff and students to wear masks.
Okay.
So we do have them available for anyone who does not have them. So that's the first question. The question regarding transportation only is in effect for STARS Academy, the Targeted Services Program.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay.
for ESY, that transportation would be required most likely through an IEP if there was special transportation listed. And then I cannot speak to the ESY except for early childhood, and that we did have more parents declining only because ours was distance learning. And I know that North and South and possibly middle high school made some modifications that they can talk about for those students who could not socially distance or had other issues that we needed to address. So they could.
For ESY, I can say that we actually did some addendums to IEPs because not everyone has ESY on their IEP. You really have to be able to show that there will be a decline in achievement, or they'll lose ground. So that has to be a team consideration. But there was something this year because of distance learning that if there were individuals who we felt ESY was warranted this year because of being in a distance learning situation, that was added to their IEP. So we actually added students this summer for our ESY program that we would not have had.
Awesome. Okay.
A normal year. We did too have some that due to distance or due to their inability to socially distance, my teachers and my SPED teacher, or the clinician, have really been creative with their schedule and figuring out a program that will work for those students and using the distance learning plan for them.
Yeah, and Tracy, North is, we have 9 students at North in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade that have ESY services on their IEP, and it's basically broken into thirds. About 3 of the 9 families only wanted distance learning, so that's being provided. They didn't want to come on campus at all. And then 3 are Monday and Tuesday, and 3 are Wednesday and Thursday. So it's pretty balanced out. And like Eve said, a good percentage of them have transportation services on their IEP. So,
and I do kind of know what's going on up at the high school, but I was just curious. Obviously, the chirping is really starting to get a little bit louder as we get closer to July 27th, but I was just curious what we were doing in the summer.
Good questions.
I'm in a little bit on just logistics. You are thinking about masking at the high school. I believe at the high school, we are requiring masks by students and staff, and we're also doing temp checks as students enter the building. We're following the guidelines of at most 9 students to 1 teacher in one space. And today, I think, my opinion, the high school is set up nicely as a facility with 4 different pods. Pretty much 9 kids have access to the entire classroom space around one of those pods. So far, so good.
No, and I mean, I know, yeah, good stuff going on. I won't get into it. Good stuff. Thank you.
This is John Carlson. How's the planning going for all 3 different types of learning, and are we going to be able to do more than one? Meaning, if we're allowed to do a hybrid or completely in person, if a family decides they want to do distance learning, will we have a plan to service them as well?
That kind of gets into the superintendent report a bit if we want to transition.
Sure. I think our trusty pilot nodded off, but he might have came back on, so I don't know.
Are you there, Ben?
I was getting some notifications that he was on and off.
Okay.
He is on mute.
I think this might be a MediaCom thing. At least I was telling my daughters to get off, and they weren't even in the house, but they said their internet was out. So.
Well, Consolidated hasn't been winning any awards at our house lately either.
Hey,
So.
there he is.
Oh, there he is. Maybe.
Now you're on mute.
This gives us a good glimpse into what the teachers have to deal with 30 kids trying to do Google Meet with the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
So true. So Member Carlson had asked a question about what planning was looking like for next year. I kind of popped in and said that's kind of something I plan on talking about in the superintendent report, and wondered if it was all right to transition into the superintendent report.
Sounds good for me. So thank you.
Well, before I go there, I just want to say that it has been such a pleasure to meet and work with staff and community members during what I've been calling my listening tour. And what has really shown through is just a pride for St. Peter schools and for St. Peter as a community. And it has just been great to have so many conversations about things that are going well, about hopes and dreams people have for the district. And I'll be continuing to meet with people over the next couple of weeks, both staff members and community members, in an effort to get to know everybody more and get a little bit more context. You've heard me speak a few times tonight about, okay, this is an area I need to dig into to learn a little bit more. And I'm thankful for everyone's time and efforts to help me catch up as much as I can. And as everyone else mentioned, today's summer school starting today, it was amazing to talk to staff, and they're really just beaming that they got to spend time with students. And there are a few of the staff that said, I was a little bit trepidatious coming in. I wasn't sure, but once I saw the students and things were going well, that they were just feeling so good about today. And it was fun to see the energy that was created by even a few students coming in today. So we're looking forward to seeing more of them, and it felt good to have students back. And yes, as you can imagine, we have been talking a lot about the fall and lots of trying to predict what the state will tell us in the coming weeks. End of next week, the latest. And they have said all along the week of the 27th. They've said a few times by July 27th. So perhaps that's a hint that maybe we'll hear something sooner. But we are still going on the assumption that we will hear next week. We have blocked off quite a bit of time to really solidify more of our plans after we get that guidance from the state. And we have talked about in person and our capability to do that, what that might look like. Distance learning, we've been doing training to enhance that, to make it even better than what we were able to put together last spring. keep in mind that last spring was put together in 3 days notice. And now we've had much more time to talk about that, to train our teachers up. We have more opportunities to do more training as we begin the school year. And then there's the hybrid. And really, that is the most complex. And that is what you heard about, talked about while we were talking about summer school, the 2 days a week and some are online. So this has really been a good practice kickoff for us. And the coming weeks will be really good practice for what these models look like and help us to tweak those plans and make sure that they're as good as they possibly can be. Keeping in mind that all of us need to allow some space and grace as I think about it. We're not going to get this perfect. We know that. And as a community, we have so many challenges ahead of us yet with this pandemic, but we want to make sure that our kids continue to learn, that they continue to be engaged, and that our families are engaged, and that we're keeping everyone as safe and healthy as we possibly can. So we know that even if they said, okay, everyone's coming back in person, we know that we will have students and staff who aren't able to do that for a variety of reasons. So we want to make sure that our plans include ways to meet the needs of all of our students and all of our families. And so if students aren't able to come in, you heard Principal Doherty say, we had some families who they weren't able to come in person, so they're doing distance learning. And we're going to plan around that. We're going to make it possible for students to engage however is most appropriate for them and their families in the fall. Later this week, we plan to share a message with families about some of our plans. We'll share as much as we can, and while we wait for further direction from the state. And then we plan to continue to share information as we have it. And as soon as we have things in place, we'll be sharing that out with families, making sure that our staff and our students all feel like they have enough information to feel good about making a decision for what's right for them in the fall. So look for a lot more information coming from us and the admin team and coming out through the schools. We'll try to use all of the communication venues that we have at our fingertips, including the all call or social media or email, any way that we can share information out to make sure that that people are getting it and that we're translating it so that everyone can receive that information and make good decisions for them and their families. So, like I said, I've had a great 2.5 weeks so far, and looking forward to digging in farther and learning more about the district.
Is Ben with us?
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Kronstadt. Any questions? Well, we'll do board members and around the table. Tracy?
I just want to say that I like Mr. Groundseth's shirt. I'm glad to see that he's got on with the Saint stuff there. So I don't really have any other questions. Just thinking of you guys this week or next week as all the information comes in. So that sounds like a sympathy card, which I didn't mean it to, but that's all.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Soderlund?
Well, when I was a kid during summer, if you'd have told me I had to go to summer or credit recovery summer school, I'd have thrown myself on the floor and I wouldn't have been able to be moved. But bless God, I got a little guy that he kind of went off the track a little bit. So he's doing that. And he was so excited to go to summer school today. I just couldn't believe it. So anyway, thank you, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be a member of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. John?
Yeah, just one thing from the negotiations committee, since I'm the only one here that's on negotiations. We had our second mediation with Office Support. We were unable to reach an agreement, and so I think we're just kind of in a cooling off period. I don't think it was pretty amicable, actually. We just disagree on certain things, and so we'll see where it goes from here. But we still have that contract out.
Thank you very much for that update and for all that you've done on that committee, and Tim and Vicky as well, all the time that's gone into that. We really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't have anything. I am, like everyone else, looking for guidance from the state. And, you know, I think that local control is important. We're elected by the voters to make decisions about St. Peter and St. Peter schools. However, I really hope that the state does come out with some definitive guidance for all districts in Minnesota with open enrollment and the fluidity around funding being tied to that. I think it would level the playing field if we were all told the same thing regarding activities, regarding plans for instruction, and if there is in-person instruction, which I think we all hope that is safe sometime within the 2020-21 school year. I hope that the state recognizes the costs associated with that and looks at state funding. And, you know, we've said often on the school board that we don't like unfunded mandates. And so I think if whatever we are going to do, there are costs associated with that. Distance learning, as we learned last year, is not free. It's not cheaper than in-person learning. In-person learning, when you're talking about making everyone safe and PPE and substitutes and sick leave and all of those things, those are all very expensive, very important things. So I'm looking forward to that guidance by July 27th. So,
Chair Leonard?
Yes.
I did neglect to mention that we are planning for a study session on August 3rd. And hopefully by then we will be able to share much more information about our models and looking at what our recommendations will be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our upcoming meetings of the school board, August 3rd. I would ask if Tracy and Bill and John are amenable to this, that we look at making that a special board meeting just to give us the flexibility to make decisions at that meeting, you know, and have action items. Doesn't mean we have to, but if we don't, then we have to wait till August 17th.
I'm in agreement with that.
And then refresh my memory too, because I'm thinking about, you know, fall sports and things too, and we'll just talk about it then. I'm just trying to figure out like teacher contracts, if people aren't coaching and are they getting paid, and will the state high school league have their recommendations out by then too?
We hope so.
They just kind of beat by the whatever. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, that's why I think we may have some action items on August 3rd, and if we are trying to purchase extra cleaning supplies and PPE, we're going to want to order those as soon as possible, and August 17th or 18th would be too late for those things. So that brings us to our regular board meeting that's scheduled for August 17th. Those are the two scheduled meetings right now. And that brings us to item number 8, which is adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Tracy Stewie.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Bill Soderlund seconds. We'll do a roll call vote. Tracy?
Stewie, aye.
Bill?
Bill Soderlund, aye.
John?
John Carlson, aye.
He's been so creative tonight.
Ben Leonard, aye. Motion to adjourn passes unanimously.